There's a kind of love that thrives when it is seen, when it is felt, affirmed. It sings when prayers are answered. It rejoices when doors are opened. It feels strong when God is clearly moving. But there's another kind of love that's deeper. It's quiet, but far more powerful. It's not sustained by what God is doing, but by who He is. And this is what I call love in silence. And the crucifixion of Jesus reminds us of this kind of love. On that day, there was noise and tension. There was drama, voices shouting, people were weeping. I can imagine the earth shaking, the veil tearing. And everything about that moment demanded attention. But the burial was different, because the burial was quiet. No crowds, no miracles, no visible movement, just a still body wrapped in linen laid in a tomb. And in that silence, there was something profound that was being tested. It wasn't the power of God, it was the love of those who claimed to have followed Him. It was the love of His followers. And it's easy to love God when He's doing something, when your prayers are answered, when things are working, when His presence feels tangible. Love just flows naturally. But what happens when God is silent? When nothing seems to be changing, when the God who once spoke clearly now says nothing. And that is where love is revealed. Love in silence is not built on results, it's built on revelation. It does not ask, what is God doing for me? No, it rests in the conviction that I know who He is. And it's a love that does not withdraw when God is quiet, but it presses deeper. It understands that silence is not absence, it's mystery. And friends, and this brings us to one of the most profound character of the resurrection story, Joseph of Arimathea. And this man represents a picture of this kind of love. He did not step forward when Jesus was healing the sick or raising the dead. He was not loud. He was not even visible. He wasn't prominent. But when Jesus died and everything seemed to be over, when there was nothing left to gain, that was when Joseph showed up. He went to Pilate and asked for the body. Think about that. Not the living Jesus, not the miracle working Jesus, but the dead, the silent Jesus, the one who by all appearances could do nothing for him anymore. And yet Joseph still wanted him. That's love without transaction. He wasn't looking for Jesus, for what Jesus could give to him. He was responding to who Jesus was. And then he did something even more powerful. He gave Jesus his own tomb, a place where Joseph had prepared for himself, that when my time is done, something really personal as his own grave. And he gave without any guarantee of return, because at that moment Joseph didn't know how the story would end. We know there was resurrection, but he did not. To him, this looked like a final value and respect for this person that he loved. And that is love that has been purified, love that does not depend on outcomes. And this is where the silence becomes important. Silence separates those who love God for what he does from those who love him for who he is. And Joseph could remain hidden while Jesus was alive, but when Jesus died, Joseph had to step forward. And this is a wake-up call to many Christians who are in hiding, because there comes a point where your conviction must become visible, where your faith must move from internal belief to external expression, where you can no longer sit quietly in systems that oppose truth and remain neutral. Joseph went to Pilate, and that was risky, it was costly, but it was public because it was necessary. There are moments in history when silence becomes compromise. And God has placed many believers in positions of influence in government, in business, in media, in leadership, not for comfort, but for assignment. Not to blend in, but to stand out. Not to preserve status, but to represent truth. And like Joseph, you may have been hidden until now. This is your moment to step forward, to be counted, to align openly, because the same Jesus you privately believe in is calling for public representation. And here's the paradox, friends, that Joseph stepped out at what looked like the worst impossible time. I mean, Jesus was dead. The movement looked like it was over. And hope looked like it was buried. And yet, that was the moment heaven chose to reveal Joseph. And you know what this means? That you don't wait for the perfect condition to stand for Christ. You stand when it is uncomfortable. You stand when it is risky. You stand when it costs something. The question is, will you step out when it matters? Or will you remain hidden? Joseph valued Jesus when the world had concluded on him. And Joseph risked his reputation to preserve the revelation that he had of Jesus. There's a dimension of love that only appears when everything falls apart, and God will use your sacrifice as a stage for his resurrection power. The real question is not, is God speaking? The real question is, will you still love him even when he's silent? You know, Joseph gave Jesus a grave, but in 3 days, God proved that you cannot bury the author of life. Happy resurrection morning, friends. Joseph of Arimathea sends a message to you. Don't stay hidden. Stand for the Christ who is now risen. Have a blessed day, friends.